So it could just be my opinion, but I think hip hop in 2024 has been relatively slow. Now, of course, we had the big beef between Drake and Kendrick, which commanded a lot of attention. And we've had strong releases from artists like Eminem and Glorilla. But overall, and I could be wrong, I feel like hip hop just didn't hit the same as it needed to overall. And honestly, I really think the reason behind that comes down to the fact that we as consumers and the buyers of the music are demanding more of a narrative, more of a storyline, more of a purpose and passion behind the music rather than just the shit that just sounds the same over and over and over again. And so when it comes to artists like Tyler, the Creator, I always get excited when he does a release because he is very good at concept albums and locking in themes and really captivating audiences in ways that are unconventional. And that's exactly what we saw of his rollout with Chromakopia, which just came out today. And honestly, like, I really do think he did a rope-a-dope on his fans. And a lot of fans I've been reading the Reddit pages and seeing what fans have been saying about this album. And it's been interesting because I literally saw a post on the Tyler, the Creator subreddit where the guy was like, I'm disappointed in how this album was rolled out versus how the album sounded. And I think that was actually the whole underlining purpose of this album. So if you haven't been paying attention to Tyler, the Creator, and what he's been doing with this project, essentially he's been wearing this mask. He has these little militant soldiers, shipping crates, cargo planes. There's a whole chromatic vibe to it, like a single kind of color palette, which I think ties into the Chromatopia theme. And the beats that he's been showing, the songs that he's been showing in the previews have been a lot more aggressive. But when you actually listen to this album, it's honestly probably his most personal, telling, and thoughtful album to date. His storytelling on this album is amazing. Songs like Darling I and Judge Judy, a couple other songs in here that are just absolutely incredible in terms of like his ability to convey songs in ways, interesting perspectives. I believe it's Darling I in particular, where he talks about, you know, the process of having a child with somebody that you may not know. And he tells the story from two different perspectives, which I think is interesting, the perspective of the father and the perspective of the mother. And as I said earlier, it's very compelling music. And it's something that reminded me about why I love hip hop to begin with, because hip hop operates in a way that's different from other genres because we focus mostly on storytelling. Like the basis of hip hop is good narrative and good storytelling. And I think themes really play a role in hip hop more so than other albums and other genres of music. And Tyler is very, very, very tapped into that mindset of being able to tap into the theme in ways that you don't expect. And like I said, with Chromacopia, I was like, okay, so with this rollout, we're going to get some really hard vibes. He's blowing up shipping containers, et cetera, and so forth. But a lot of this album is actually very laid back. It's very nuanced. It's very ethereal in the way that he approaches it. Like the production is out of this world. And to be honest, I think this album is almost like an evolution and an offset of what we expected from Kendrick Lamar and even Childish Gambino earlier this year in terms of having these vulnerable, almost therapy-like albums that really tap into who we are as people. And when I first heard this album and gave it the first spin, even the song that features Childish Gambino in the background, I felt like it was a Childish Gambino throwaway. And the more I listened to this album, I was like, man, this is almost the album that I wanted from Childish when he dropped Bando, Stone in the New World. I felt like this Chromacopia album really finds that balance between experimental, straight up hard hip hop and interesting narratives that really drive this album and holds attention. I can honestly say right now that this is an album of the year contender currently. And not to like knock Tyler, the Creator, but the bar is not very high. I mean, if you look at the current hip hop field right now, and even just based off of sales, you know, you have Glorilla, you have Eminem, you have Metro Boomin and Future, Metro Boomin and Future. And it's one of those things where it's like, there's nothing there that really just kind of stops the world this year. Besides Kendrick popping up and like that, right? That was a world stopping moment. And then obviously the beef, but I'm not putting the beef in this conversation because these aren't albums or projects. These are just two men fighting each other. I'm talking about actual cohesive projects and like thought put into the concept. we haven't really got a lot of that. And honestly, the best person to do it this year before this album was Eminem. Eminem had a very thought out concept with the Death of Slim Shady, and he executed it very well, in my opinion. The album is fine, but the execution of the story and the narrative of what drove the sales, drove the attention, and got people really interested into the album. It's like rollouts are extremely important nowadays because it shows how much the artist cares. And yeah, you can surprise drop an album and it might do sales, but really only if you have the fan base that's going to expect that. Otherwise, you have to capture people's attention in ways that other people can't. And Tyler is a master at that, like masterful at it. When I first saw the first rollout for Chromacopia with him in the mask, I was like, all right, cool. We're going to get something that's going to be deep. I already knew it was going to be a deep album, and I was expecting something that was going to be outside the box. The fact that he produces all the tracks himself on this album, and the fact that he, I realize he says no features originally, but there are features on this album, and we'll get into that in a little bit. It's one of those things where me as an artist around 40 years old at this point, trying to do his thing, I've always appreciated evolutions of artists. Like, where are you at now versus where you were 10 years ago, and where will you be 10 years from now, right? And if you look at Tyler, the Creator's evolution of his career, it's incredible. Like those first couple of albums, Goblin and that whole vibe, to where he's at now is one of the craziest growths that we've seen in hip hop since like Mac Miller. Like if you look at Mac Miller's career before he died, his last album that he did was damn near orchestra and was like just so outside the box and creative. And you're really seeing the same thing in Tyler, the Creator, where, like I said, I get excited about his releases. It's very rare nowadays that I get excited about artists releasing their music. And it's not necessarily even because of the music itself, because I think that the ability to create and the bar to create great music in 2024 is actually a lot lower. Like, this is not hard nowadays to go and find a way to create songs that are palpable and digestible by the audience. And I think a lot of people, a lot of artists have figured that out. And that's why it really does come down to the rollout and the narrative and the story that you're really trying to tell behind the music. Like, what is the reasons for making these musics? And there's a lot of revelations on this album too. Like, when you listen to it, like, I don't know if this dude has a kid or not. He might, and maybe that'll be revealed at some point. But there's a lot of hints, and he was hitting on this on the last album too. Even with Dogtooth, there was like that line, like, if you don't know my daughter's name, then we ain't really dogs, right? Like, when I first heard that line on Dogtooth, I was like, did this dude have a kid? Yeah, on this album, there's multiple songs. Even the theme of the album underlining is about a mother talking to his son, or her son, sorry, and about saying all these things that are, I wouldn't say generic in a relationship of a mother and son, particularly a Black mother and son, but things that you kind of hear from Black mothers. And then you have the song Darling I, which, like I said, talks about the perspective from two different people having a child together who aren't necessarily like married or together. They're like kind of like in a new relationship, trying to figure that out, which I think is just a genius song. But there's other references too. And I'm like, man, this guy actually might have a kid. He actually might have a kid. There's another song on here, I forget the name off rip, where he actually talks about, you know, a woman accusing him of having a child with him, like getting pregnant. And so there's, and I'm not sure the thing about it too, even as I talk about it, I say him, but then you have to also remember that Tyler, Creator, plays different characters and has played different characters throughout his career. So he could be telling a story from maybe a homie's perspective, or maybe this is just a story he made up, or he could be dropping some hints that, you know, he does have a family and he is trying to not roll it out, but kind of reveal that to the world a little bit, which I think, you know, being a father myself, it's something where it's like, I really connected with Darling I in the sense that I understand the perspective from both sides, and that this is understanding what it means to bring a life into this world, understanding the responsibilities behind that, understanding what the gravity and the weight of that means to you and the other person involved, like how much your life is going to change. These are all things that a lot of people don't really consider when they're out there doing their, you know, the nasty with their partners, right? Like, bringing life into this world is easily the most important thing that we do as humans. And so the responsibility and understanding of it really has to be taken into account. And I think that Tyler touches on this in a way that's like so genuine and so real. It's like, man, like, I never actually really heard a song on this level in hip hop ever before. And I really appreciate that. So I really do appreciate that song. There's several other songs on here like Sticky, where the production is just crazy. But that song also features Glorilla, Sexy Red, and Lil Wayne. And the beat is just nuts. And what's crazy about it is that Tyler's production has always been underrated. I feel like I wouldn't call him like the best producer, but his ability and his approach to beats is so unique and so genuine that it's like, man, this dude really loves what he does. And you can hear it in his production. It's solid work. All the production on here is very interesting. There's a lot of uses of horns, a lot of usage of just like interesting deep synthesizers that are like kind of reverberating, but there's also like a lot of soul to a lot of songs too. I think the last song of the album, which is called I Hope You Find Your Way Home, is just like a straight up soul song. It's just like this soul vibe that, like I said, reminds me of Childish Gambino and like on a kind of Redbone kind of vibe. And it's one of those things, like, once again, I just really appreciate artists like Tyler, the Creator. And to be straight up honest and straight up transparent, like when Tyler, the Creator first came out, he was another one of those artists I was just like, maybe. You know what I'm saying? Like, I appreciated what he was trying to do with like the shock horror and all that. And like kind of was in that Hobson wannabe Eminem lane for his first couple albums. But then he switched it up. And when he did switch it up, which I think was kind of like Cherry Bomb, when we kind of saw that switch, it was interesting to see the growth into him becoming one of the most interesting artists in music, not just hip hop, but in music. And this is why this dude does command my attention. And this is why, you know, he is winning Grammys and getting all kinds of critical acclaim for his projects, because a lot of it, and this is how I started this video, a lot of it comes down to the narrative, like how he approaches it, the themes that he's trying to present. It's not just the music. It goes well beyond the music. It's a whole universe that you create around the music that draw people in. I remember when he dropped his last album and I actually saw him on tour, and, you know, the themes that were on his album connected with the themes that he was doing on stage, was connected to all the videos that he was doing. It's a cohesive thing. And if you really tap into that in the right way and your audience is, you know, open to that, you will see amazing results. This album's going to do numbers. It's crazy with his strategy. I'm not sure how I feel about dropping it on a Monday. His reasoning and logic came down to, like, there's an interview going viral right now that he did with Nardwar, where he talks about coming back to releasing music on Mondays or Tuesdays, because of the fact that he believes that the attention span would be greater on these days because people are at work listening to music, et cetera, so forth, versus the weekend when people are listening to music more background status. And I kind of go back and forth on this because I've definitely gotten used to music dropping Thursday night. I'm on the West Coast, so Thursday night music drops at 9 p.m. for me. It's going to shift to 10 p.m. here next week because of daylight savings time. But I got used to that. I actually kind of planned my week around that, where it's like, oh, yeah, it's Thursday night, new music's coming out, et cetera, so forth. Music dropping on a Sunday night, like after I'm like kind of getting ready in my mind, right? I kind of get it. And I was listening to this album with my son on the way to school. He's actually a Tyler, the Creator fan, so we listened to the first couple tracks together on our way to school. So that was cool. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I don't think that he has that much mojo to where he's going to shift the industry back to that. It was actually Beyonce who shifted it to Fridays to begin with. You can blame her for that. For those of you who didn't know, when she dropped her self-titled album, I believe, Beyonce, she surprise dropped it on a Friday, with the logic being that people have the weekend to listen to music. So ever since then, the industry was like, oh, that's such a great idea. And then they started dropping music on Friday. So I kind of go back and forth on that decision, and we'll see how it affects the record sales overall. Like, I don't think Billboard is going to accommodate or shift their numbers around for him. But we'll see how that plays out. But that said, I do like the fact that he is trying to kind of shift things and make changes to what he feels is wrong with the industry by doing it himself, right? And part of that comes down to the fact that Tyler, the Creator, has always been an outlier, which is why he's never been in the discussion of like the big fruit three or anything like that. Even though in my personal opinion, I believe that Tyler actually deserves that third slot as the third big one, I guess. If you look at Drake, Kendrick, and Cole, I would actually replace J. Cole with Tyler, the Creator at this point. Why? Because Tyler, the Creator has put out more music at this point that's more critically acclaimed. And I believe that numbers wise, he's doing the same or better than J. Cole at this point. And I might be wrong. Hop in the comments, fact check me, do what you want to do. But I believe Tyler deserves a slot. And he does talk a lot of shit in this album too about his position. It's not like the whole album is like this deep introspective album about having babies. There's a lot of aggressive songs on here as well that really bang. Ratata is a banger. It's a banger. Like the song goes hard, and it's something that like I really appreciate the balance of this album. Like where it's like it's not all just hard songs, it's not all just boom bap hip hop. In fact, it's like this experimental weave tapestry of music that's kind of like this combination of soul, experimental, aggressive hip hop. There's a little bit of boom bap on here. There's not like a lot of trap beats. In fact, a lot of the beats on here are very like subdued kind of boom bap, kind of like lo-fi kind of vibes with Tyler spitting, which kind of makes Tyler's voice almost be like the forefront driving force of most of the songs on here, which as it should be when it comes to music like that. So I believe that overall, like, I think that this is an album of the year contender. I could actually probably give this album another spin and make a whole another 15, 16 minute video about this because like I said, the narrative is super strong. I believe that the songs are very deep and rich and there's a lot to digest from it, even lyrically. Like a lot of the lyrics, like I'm going off a reaction video here, but I already picked up a lot from it. And I know I will get more from multiple listens to where I'm like, oh man, oh man, oh man. So that's well appreciated. And as I said, when I started this video, there's not really like a lot of competition out there in terms of like albums that like kind of stopped hip hop for a second to give people a moment to be like, in 2024. It only happened a couple times. I would say Eminem and then Metro Boomin and Future's album are really the albums that kind of stopped the world for a second. And this album, I believe, is a world stopper too. It might not be for a long time because, like I said, Tyler the Creator is an outlier and a lot of people like just don't subscribe to Tyler the Creator. So as he continues to chip away from that mainstream audience, it's going to be interesting to see how like more and more people react to his music. This guy is a Grammy award-winning dude, and he's won album of the year. But like I said, he's still not in that conversation of like, oh, greatest rappers of our generation. But I think at this point with this album, you can actually make that case. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I'll be back, guys, with more videos. I know I've been not doing a long form video. I've been doing a lot of shorts, actually. They've been fun, but I'll get back to the long form videos here soon. But let me know what you think about Chromakopia. Is it an album of the year contender? Is it that good? Did Tyler drop a classic? Also, like and subscribe because we know I need them subscribes. I need them likes because it helps the algorithm and all that stuff. But anyways, y'all stay safe. Take care. Peace.